welcome one and all to CDR. How are you? I'm sorry. Welcome one and all to CDR. How are you? Much better, much more convincing. Welcome to another CDR. If you've already been, if you are new here, welcome. Love to see some new faces. We are a community supporting music producers of every walk of life, whether you feel that you're a beginner, intermediate, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is very important that we create a community, especially around the beauty of electronic music and dance music in this formidable city, Manchester. CDR spans across a few different cities, but we are the Manchester chapter. I'm trying to make it sound as religious as possible, so it gets a bit weird. I'm Pops Roberts, the host, and we're joined today by the amazing Ghoulish.
Hello, hello.
Hello. I'm going to intro you because nobody likes to intro themselves. No. So Ghoulish, you are an incredible force majeure. Yes, you are.
Not at all.
Yeah, this is you're going to be impossible, right? You have to listen to the whole bio now. No replies. You caught attention of Scream, Seth Troxler, people like that, with your incredible productions. Your music is inspired by breaks, dubstep, all the good stuff, underground dance music in the UK. You recently brought out an EP on Scream's I Feel imprint, incredible, and have been named one to watch by everyone. DJ Mag, UKF. Hold Tight was like a massive track of the year. So in what is a relatively short amount of time, as you said yourself, you've been absolutely smashing it and been hitting up. I think you've played Fabric twice already with Scream & Co. Yeah, incredible. Twice. So mental. A mighty career and very exciting to watch. And obviously it's an honour always when it's somebody who's from the beautiful sunny Manchester.
Salford, actually.
Oh,
there we go.
Oh gosh.
Big old Salford.
Amazing. Even better, in my opinion. So yeah, we're very honoured to have you here. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
I always like to begin, because I'm nosy, as we know. I like to ask, you touched on something before, which I really want to, I think will come up when I ask this question, but how did you first get into music? When did music begin to call you?
So I got into music, I think, probably about 12, 13, and it was sort of a bit of a skewed path, so it was proper EDM, Avicii and all that sort of stuff. And then it was going down to American dubsteps, tear out rhythm. But also at the same time, my sister was into like Clubland. So I was always into really Donk in the morning, then to Akon. But on the way to school, it was Skrillex. So it was really rogue. And then from that, I think at college, I was about 16, 17. I was really starting to delve into garage, but not sort of proper garage. It was sort of things on Inspected, which is sort of Neuro garage, and from that I was really going into what the hell's garage, and I got bored of making sort of tear out because I kind of hated it. Well, I didn't hate the scene, I hated what I was making. I was like, this sucks, I'm shit at this. So I was like, right, I need to make something better. So I was always making house, burial sort of garage and house music, and then I just sort of was like, I'm gonna do that, and then
But you mentioned that you're a jazz drummer.
I was into jazz massively. Especially in high school, so I was doing all the trainings for that and stuff. I was never really in a band; it was just the school band, and I was doing load of rudiment training with a guy called Leon Park, who's an insane drummer. And I was a big fan of Bernard Purder, and Bernard Purder was my idol. Him and Jojo Mayo. That was my whole. I remember waiting to school after practice for ages, and I had a joint drum lesson with another lad in my year, and he was just go warm. I was yeah, and I started doing all the chops, and he's like, when the fuck did you learn that? I was like, I've been practicing, mate. And then, but I got to college, and then it was I kind of hated drumming, because I was I'd hate working with people. And then I started delving in Logic, and then realised
that's how you get rid of people from your life.
Yeah. I was
get on Logic.
I was Logic's all right, actually. And then I delved into Ableton, because I was looking at Launchpad videos and stuff like that. Yeah. And then it just went from there, really. And Amazing. It was just I say American dubstep, then sort of a bit of garage on the side. Now it's sort of mainly garage, mainly house, with bass music influences.
So it's no coincidence that because from my understanding of the music I've heard so far, I do love your command of rhythm and how you approach it. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't entirely surprising that you said that you trained in jazz and a little bit of other stuff. Also, I've heard you got a bit of a thing for metal as well. Yeah,
massive into metal. Nice. It's one of the things that I was always into in school, and then went to college. There's a few lads there that I met, whereas AJ and Adam.
But that's where all the giggling's coming from.
And they were like, have you heard of hardcore? I was like, nah, what's hardcore? I remember like they was like showing me loads of stuff like hardcore and beatdown, and I went to like metal, like black metal, and like sort of like really like death metal stuff into like beatdown and hardcore, and now it's just like sort of like hardcore. So it's like the sort of like daily listening rotations, like soul music, hardcore, and like jazz, and then sort of like just cool electronic bits.
I will always love, and whenever I see you from now on, I'll remember you saying "donk in the morning."
Yeah.
Because that's donk in the morning, donk in the evening.
No, my sister was like, oh, we used to listen to Clubland, and I remember it was like her, like she used to hammer it, and then I got my DJ start in Wigan too, so I was always around donk from like super early, and it was hectic, and I was like, nah, I'm not playing donk, I'm gonna play like Tear Out. But I was also like, I kind of do like donk. And this when I started like hearing speed garage without realising what speed garage was at that time.
Okay.
So it's pretty interesting.
So you've dipped your toes in so much, and obviously, that comes across in like the wealth of influences we hear in like a lot of the music
that's
that
why
out.
my agent and manager hate me because like make one style of music. I'm like, no, not doing that. I'm just gonna keep on doing what I'm doing, and it's going all right. But we'll see where it goes.
Keep it on, man. And you very generously have brought a track to like talk through a bit of a breakdown on it.
Yeah, I think we should probably give it a test to see if it works.
Yeah, let's get some playback.
Let's have a listen. Oh, it does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'll skip it on a little bit because the intro's a bit too long for my liking. But yeah.
Questions. We'll listen to the second half very shortly because I want to talk about structure. Listen to this fade out. Have you ever heard such an accurate fade out? Man. Beautiful. Amazing. 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 So number one, thank you so much for color coding. I love it. I live for it. I need to see it. I love this. Beautifully grouped, beautifully color coordinated. There's order.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like if I don't have order, I actually can't function. So like I'll start the track with sort of being chaotic, and then I've got to color code it because I can't actually.
How
work.
do you know? How does future you know what yesterday you was
even
doing?
Like if I don't have I think it's like what's my favorite color now? I've got my favorite color, like purplish,
magenta,
something like that. If I don't have that sort of like. I can't remember the word I'm looking for, but if I don't have that like, colour palette, I can't do an Ableton project, like genuinely.
Yeah.
I've got a very certain thing, if I don't have it, it stresses me out. So
I love that. And I was going to ask, is this kind of in the order that things were put together? Do you have a go-to, like, is there commonly a way that you start making a track? Or is it start differently every single time?
Yeah, I'll always start with the rhythm section. It will always be drums for me, because for me, like every single one of my tracks, which I didn't really realise until like probably the last 6 months, are really drum heavy. Like,
yeah, I mean, that group's 10 times bigger than the others.
We'll open it up a little bit so we can have a look.
Love it.
So
how many snares and claps?
We'll talk about that.
Yes.
So the way the groups act for me is more like a bus. So I wouldn't actually use the return tracks, but I use the groups as a bus, and that's how I'll process a lot of things. So the kick kind of self-explanatory, really.
So whatever you're applying to the drums is applied to all of them because they're grouped together?
No. It will be sort of individual buses, so like tops, snare, kick, are all separate. Then it goes into a master sort of like filter. So this was obviously all getting affected by a filter.
Yeah, so groups within a group.
Yeah, so it will like just be like...
I'm just translating in case people don't like buses. I know the minute I ever used to hear the word bus when I was at a certain point in music production, I'd be like, shut down.
What does that mean?
No.
Yeah. It's just a way for like sort of for me to understand how to mix the track, because I do all my own mixing and mastering too. Mastering, I bastardize it, but it still makes the track loud. But it usually starts off, like I say, really, really simple. Kick, just a kick and snare going for it, and then... And like I said, the approach to it all is just choosing really good samples. When I'm choosing drums, I like kind of things that are nearly falling over each other. So that's why you hear like a lot of break samples. And then, and with the breaks, I usually, unless I really want it sloppy, I'll tighten it up with transients with Ableton. So this one's not been, but I believe this one has.
When you say tidy it up with transients, you're doing that in the audio?
Yeah, so in the actual audio.
Oh, I'm in the way.
Yeah. So we can see like over here, I will go out my way to sort of...
Shall I be like this?
So I will actually go out to tighten them up. And obviously, I do try and use the warp markers to get them in time, but I'm not too regimented with it because I want that feel. Because that's why it sounds sort of nice. And as I say, you highlighted a lot of snares. And there's a big reason for it is because I do so much sampling from like records and stuff like that.
So you've like shortened everything up. So transients is everything like this. So every sound that happens, that's the beginning of the sound that says it decays into silence. So you've shortened them all up. I see you.
Yeah, so you just sort of shorten it up, but
so
like
rather than having all the long tails, they're just shorter.
Yeah, but like even here, like you can probably see the kicks actually still coming in like a bit beforehand. That's giving that sort of, and you do hear it a little bit. Nothing like major, but it's a really especially like for the floor house stuff. It's like. Oh, well, let's listen to the break. So it's still sort of before. No, it's so minor, but when it comes like into a whole like rhythm section, you can hear it. And then, like I say, there's so many like snares. One because I lay the snares to get like a bolder sound, but a lot of because I remember there's a lot of the records I was listening to. I was like, these sound great, and it's such a simple thing for just getting like old breaks. Like I say, this one's Fifth Dimension Rainmaker. It's just a snare from it, but it has so much body. I've never done any processing to it. It's just that nice. But then when it comes to like the clap and stuff, because it's such a prominent feature, that's where like a lot of layers will come in, and they'll all have the same sort of swing to it. Because if you don't have the same swing, it all gets a bit disjointed. Do
you have favourite claps that you go back to? Because I know one.
I do one. It's the Oliver 808. It's.
Because going through all the different claps is when it's time for a break. I have to leave the studio. It's time to go.
It's so. I'll try and find like really shit sounding samples on purpose. Like I said, body. Because it's like that's when you listen to like old funk and soul records. You're like, I kind of want something that's shit, but this is my go-to.
Hey, you won't hear that about funk and soul, fam.
No, they've got like shit warmness to it sometimes, and like that sort of like grayness. Yeah. It's great, but then this one's like will always be a go-to layer. It's just like a really clean 808 from Oliver, who's a wicked producer, and that would just give like a bit of width, and also because it got the pre-delay, and like it adds like just a really nice width to it, like naturally because there's like sort of a delay in each transient you can see there, and that's like a really nice thing I've always found with my tracks. That's a go-to, but then like I say, there's just a multitude of different claps from different tracks. So this one's from Fearless Incognito, then Oliver Clap, then this, like I say, an old vinyl from whatever that is, sample pack, and then this is just an Ableton stock kit playing, I'm assuming a snare. It looks like he's playing a kick though. Yeah, and that's just like adding to so much character. But I think the most important thing for me when it comes to drums is the top section, which is like my hi-hats, percussion.
Yeah, it's the driving element, isn't it? It's the jazzer in you.
Yeah, like, and if I don't, I'll probably spend about an hour making like a little drum loop, and it's like such subtle edits. So it'll be like, I'll be taking the hi-hat from a sample like here, and then moving it slightly. It's a really common thing to do, but then also applying like the MPC swing with an Ableton, so you can have like groove pools.
No one ever mentions groove pool. Please go on. I love this.
And groove pools are like such a powerful thing. So like,
it's crazy.
You can just apply them as well as having your own swing, and it gives like such a feel to the track. So if you can actually have a listen. Again, if you don't know much about swing, it's a bit of a weird thing because you can't really hear it, but you can feel it. And that's, like I say, the hi-hats are the driving factor for that. So
it's got an almost like sucking effect to it, hasn't it, because of that?
It sounds out of time when you put a metronome to it, but then when everything pairs together, like, you build a clap up for it. And I feel like if you can't listen to your top section and your claps with no kick, then you've probably got it wrong. That's how I go about it, because I spend so long trying to like perfect the swing and feel of my drums. Because I remember some of my older tracks, there was like falling over each other. Yeah. I do like the falling over, but you don't want it. You just want it just before falling over.
It has to catch you, so you're back for the next.
Yeah. So there's like, it's a really simple technique, but I generally do use it proactively. And then probably a good thing to talk about is layering the kicks as well. Like I said, there's a lot of EQ going on and stuff, which is really, really simple. A lot of it is subtractive, a little bit of additive for things. But
what an attractive pro cue that was.
But like, I think a big like tip for me is this kilohertz transient shaper. This is quite literally used on everything for me in drums. It's not to do too much, nothing crazy. It's adding a lot more of a transient and then taking the sustain off. So if you looked at the actual kick, the back end of where's it? The sample. The back end of the kick would have been reduced, and the top end would have been like more prominent.
Interesting.
And that's something that I find it's really useful, and I always take away from it. But I think if you don't do that, your kick will not push through the mix. And then the most important thing from the top of that, I think, on here would be the soft clipping then. So it's a bit more of a mixing tip. But when I come to mix my drums especially, like I say, I've got all these buses/groups, it depends on what DAW you're in. And once I push it into K-clip, it basically rounds off like a harsh freak. So if you look at our like RMS meters, which is probably a scary word for people, but RMS
it's the thing, isn't it?
I always get scared. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? But it just means this. And without the saturation and this clipper on it, would basically have
just be in the reds.
A perceivable loud little. I don't think it'd be red actually, but what it would be a perceivably loud signal. Whereas once I clip it, it's still the same actual loudness, but Ableton registers it quieter, so you actually get more headroom. So when it comes down to like mixing and mastering, you can push everything further. So I do use this a lot, but I'm not going to be able to pull it up because we are screen recording. But mini meters is like sort of an oscilloscope, a spectrogram. And that,
say it again.
An oscilloscope or spectrogram. I can't fucking say it. But that comes across the top of my screen, and that I once I've got a good image on that as well, I know where my drums are sat. And that's a big thing for my drums. So it's like, as well as the feel, the sound of it and the actual mix of it is incredibly important. And that, like I said, that for me is, if you're not having good drums in your track's probably not going to sound too great, especially on a club system. Where I
found that out last time I played something on these speakers. Bullshit.
I mean, I don't know if this sounds good because I've not listened to it from the front of the house, but it sounded all right on my speakers at home. So, and it sounded good on a few other speakers.
What are your speakers at home? Sorry,
HS7s, and that's all I produce on. I don't produce on headphones because I physically don't understand headphones.
Interesting.
I've never been able to do headphones in my life. I tried it when I've been on the road and stuff, and it's just a no-go.
Okay.
But yeah, so like really drums is just like good sample selection, good swing feel, and an incredible amount of just like processing to make things sound warmer, or bringing down like really harsh transient, which is like the initial hit of a drum.
Yeah.
So that when it comes into your processing section, you've got a lot more room to play with to push it, which I'm not sure like how deep we can go with these talks, but like your headroom and stuff is an incredibly important thing, which is like I pride myself on Mixdowns. So like I kind of, and my mixdowns are really simple when I break it down. It's literally just volume control, EQ in, and it's making sure that once I start pushing it with a limiter, because I'm not a mastering engineer, it just has that sort of clarity. So if I want to push it further, I can. So
no, it is really important. I hate mixing my own stuff because by the time I've got to that point, because I don't mix really much as I go along, by the time I get to mixing, I'm like, I never want to hear this track again, ever. But get over it, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's really lovely to hear somebody who's passionate about it and like does and it sounds like you're very visual with it. Like you have, and I think that's something that I think is really important when you're producing music, whatever stage you feel you're at, knowing what you actually respond to, you've gone out and sought out. You've got certain plugins that are very visual, like you mentioned with your whatever that thing was that you said.
Mini meters. I get so many DMs about it.
The one with loads of L's and S's in it.
Oh, oscilloscope, spectroscope, or spectrogram. Sorry.
So, because it's a spectrogram, obviously these things are showing visually like what's going on sonically, and that's really cool that you can. That's how you work. I'm very visual as well. I'd probably be better with mixing if I use something like that.
Yeah, it's a really important thing because it actually mimics record box. So I'm assuming most people, if you're making music, you're probably a DJ too. And you can set it so it mimics record box's RGB spectrogram. Yeah. So when you look at it, if your bass is sitting really nice, it'll be red. And if your drums and high end are sitting really nice, there's a bit of purple in it too. And you can sort of reference it to like tracks I like. So I always reference like Joy Orbison, brilliant like mixing engineer.
Yeah,
like,
really amazing.
But it's also like depressing when you listen to his stuff because like, I don't know how to do that. But when you look,
we don't have the same money as them.
And then you can reference it and be like, oh, right, my hat's not sitting well because it's not the same color.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned it. But then also by ear, you can sort of start figuring out once you've got used to the visual aspect. And that's been a game changer for me this last year. So I do recommend that massive. But I don't think I'll be able to show it because I've got this in full screen and we are recording. But it is like, it's wicked. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And I think really the vocals, I don't really need to talk about. There's vocal samples with a bit of like process to make it stereo. But the bass, there's something that I've encountered a lot recently because I'm doing like a lot of stuff with analog emulated synths, and it is controlling the DC of your bass. So this is something that we actually would have to visualize. But when you've got like a positive and a negative of a signal, and when you're doing a lot of things with things that are analog, you have to roll off the low end. So with this bass, it's a really simple bass, but I really encountered lots of mixing issues, and it was just a case of rolling off a lot of low end. That like low end that you might think is important, but like 30 hertz is more energy than sort of audible. And when you do that, it sort of teeters what the DC value is, and the DC value goes from like here to here. So imagine like a wave going like this. And mine was too positive. So when I did a bit of a low pass filter, it made it like neutral. So then it wasn't moving the speaker too much, which was giving like a really weird phase to the whole sound. And that's been really important for me because I've had to do this on like every track like in the last 6 months because I was like, why is my mix is not sitting right? Yeah. Obviously, if you want like an analog sound, you're not going to touch that. But yeah.
But you have to compensate somewhere because this is the thing with sound, isn't it? It's like, all of these different things, kicks, subs, bass like this, live in the same lasagna layer. You know I love cooking analogies. Let me have them. Everyone who's been here before knew that it was coming. It's either Lord of the Rings or cooking. And it lives in the bottom lasagna layer. And you have to find place for everything to exist in that layer so that the ear can appreciate it. Because if everyone's fighting for the entire layer, like all of these will be if you don't start chopping away, it just gets muddy as hell. It's like too much.
And like, for most of my tracks, I use a dedicated sub bass. So the actual bass is like 3 layers. So you've got the initial layer of analog, which is just preset Ableton. It's just going
crispy.
Super simple patch. Say it's just a saw wave with a bit of filtering, resonance, and then there's a slight distortion, echo, and all that sort of stuff. Then a top layer, which is a little bit wider, just to give.
So it's quite melodic.
Yeah,
it's pushing the actual note through a bit more.
It's just to give it a bit more character. But then, like the actual really important bit for most of my tracks is this dedicated sub, which is on every single song I've made in the last like 4 years, and it's super simple. You can make it in anything.
Nice.
And that is just silent, but you can do it on anything. It's just a sine wave, triangle wave.
Oh, what's this? Let me lean back.
This is silent, which is sort of like if you was watching like FL Studio tutorials in like 2013, you probably bought, or I persuaded my parents to buy. And it's just a really nice sounding sine wave with a triangle wave, bit of distortion, a low pass, and then everybody's favourite OTT. But which I don't actually use too much because I do think it sounds shit. But
yeah, it's not my favourite.
It adds lots of like shit artifacts, and I think it's dreadful. But
in the case, time.
It's got its time here because it just like over compresses it so much that it gives such a like broad sound. And then,
sorry.
And then all this compared to with like everything is it's a really nice sound, and that all goes into again a quote unquote bus, which is just soft clipping again, rolling off that sort of headroom, rolling off like peaks to give more headroom, and that goes into another one which is getting sidechained, and then this here is just a filter. So when I'm doing the rhythmic stuff in the build up, I can just filter it, and then that goes into another bus which is just getting sidechained.
Bus after bus.
Yeah,
it's like Princess Parkway around here. They don't come and then they all do.
And then the actual sidechain is an operator patch, which is, I think a lot of people probably use that X for Records. Is it X for Records? The LFO tool, is it? I can't remember. Or
I'm
Kickstarter.
not sure.
It's a dedicated like sort of envelope shaper. But I don't, because I'm a lazy bastard. And I just use this operator, which is, it's a ghost track, and it's just mimicking the kick drum. And before it's muted, it's actually just before clipping. So then it's actually like a really firm signal, and then that feeds into a compressor, which is giving like a really clean signal. Because sometimes if you trigger it from an actual kick, it will take the whole body, and that gives like a really sort of long sidechain, which gives like a kind of an unclean sort of, you know what I mean? I probably don't know what I mean, but I know what I mean.
No, I do. I know, because it's like sidechaining effectively, for anyone who's not used to it, or any sort of sidechaining activity, is basically where you're telling something to take information from something else. So if you had a band, you would, rather than, like in this case, rather than taking the entire drums or the kick drum, you would just get this compressor to listen to the hi-hat, just a little short burst, and then it will behave like that. It will listen to that
exactly.
rather than the whole thing. I think that explained it all right.
And to be honest, like my bass and rhythm section is the driving factor of every track. And then what comes after really for me is melodic driven stuff. So
nice.
All the intro and like breaks is just like pads. And I can sound design this, but I do find...
I want to talk about this. We don't talk about this enough.
We talk about like sound designing pads and stuff. I don't necessarily sound design from scratcher pads. No, they are quite fun to make, but I'm not very strong with musical theory for one, which I find with pads has to be, and two, I find it really boring.
With pads, are you talking about controllers, like when you're actually playing something in?
No, like pads, like this sort of stuff.
Oh, pads itself, okay.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
So if this is like the melodic driven elements, it's really simple. Super, super simple, and all it is two Ableton presets with a tiny bit of process for filters, and then a bit of creative resampling, which I believe is from this DX7 and the M1, and that is just, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what it's doing, so I'll have a listen. It's just,
I love going back into stuff and being like, what was I doing?
It's just doing that.
Yeah, sick.
Which is just a pretty shit arpeggio, but then I've resampled it into this.
Yeah, sick.
Which has just like a load of like fun sort of
shimmer and like,
yeah, just like really fun stuff. Like nothing like it's like, oh my god, that's burning me head. That it's just, you know,
bit of flange, bit of what's that? Chorus.
Yeah, chorus, and then like a guitar is like a secret weapon when it's like comes to resampling.
Yes, it is. I love
like a lot of presets are like made by like some like major bands guitarists, and there's a few I can't find them, but I can't be asked to find them, to be honest. They're made
Guitar
by
Rig's free, isn't it? This one is. One of them is.
No, Guitar Rig's not free. I think that's about.
I've stolen it.
I just got a Pirate Bay. That's what I do. I don't.
I didn't pay a penny.
But it's a really useful tool when it comes to basically making things that are a bit more interesting. So a lot of bass design that I do when it's not like simple signs or stuff, it will literally be a case of getting them, running it through Guitar Rig, running a resample channel, and then sampling said channel. And it's something that I do with quite a lot of drums too. Not this track, but more experimental tracks that I've done. Really relies on Guitar Rig's sort of ridiculous resampling, just making huge chains. But yeah, you said you wanted to talk about structure as well.
I did a bit because I wanted to, I don't know, hands up who struggles with structure. Anyone whose hands are down, you're lying. Okay? I appreciate the lie, but I won't hear it. Structure is one, because we can always fall into like pitfalls of doing the same kind of structures. I think personally, like, structures are different depending on the tune.
Definitely.
I make neo soul. Sometimes it's got to be a bow, and sometimes it's got to be a fade out.
Yeah. I think when I approach structure, I'm not going to lie, I do get a bit lazy sometimes, but I have realised something, especially when I'm DJing, is I want a track that translates well to people to listen to. but you can't have it steer away too much from what you actually want. So in this track, for example, once it gets to like the middle 8, which is where people would like mix out of really, or well, it'd be the bridge, then the middle 8, it would be like, it's literally just a kick drum. I think there should be a bass line there. Oh, I muted it, I was going to say. It's a kick drum and a bass line, sorry. Then it progresses into what I'd call like a middle 8, which just adds a break sample. So I find when like I'm approaching structure, my whole thing is changing the break where a DJ would mix into like what I'd call a quote unquote middle 8 or a bridge, and then back into the drop, because if you differentiate too much, it does lose that sort of club effect. So you kind of got to balance it. I mean, what's quite nice is with this, I think because it's so simple and catchy, I was like, I'm just going to keep it. But sometimes I will try to alter the second part. But I think the most important part is really approaching that section here to break it, because you can hear this whole part, which is your chorus, but you want to like sort of subtly change that, and then once you're building back up, change it a lot, then bring it back to what everyone knows. And that's what I like doing anyway personally, because I'm not going to say like I'm a songwriter or anything, but especially when writing things that are not dance music or not club focused, you can get away with a lot more structural stuff. But in this thing, you can't. And also because Spotify and all that stuff just doesn't allow you, because if you do too much, you just get murdered.
What do you mean?
So when
this is my chance to slag off Spotify. Come on.
So when it comes to actually DSPs and stuff, you can't actually
digital streaming platforms.
You can't make a track too long anymore, or labels will not let you do it, because if a track's over, I think 3 minutes 30 seconds, it's like, oh, we're not going to playlist it, or we're not going to play it on the radio. Which is, I do think it's a lot of bollocks, but it's something that when you are structuring a track out, you have to sort of consider. I mean, I have club mixes for pretty much every single one of my tracks. I think this is one of the only ones I've got where it's not over like 5 or 6 minutes. But it is something that you've got to consider, because you kind of want to get, if you've got loads of things going on, which in this case there's not really just a lot of layers. You've really got to be like, right, what do I want to happen here? What do I want to happen there? You can't really delay it, and unfortunately, you have to factor it in. Even though as much as I'd like to say you can, and you shouldn't, but you do have to really, really think about it.
If that's where you want your music placed, then
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I say, I think for most people in like the underground dance scene, at this point, I don't think people really give too much of a shit, because it's like you go to Bandcamp, you can make really good money on Bandcamp, you can make really good sort of like quote unquote a social impact on it. Spotify is sort of stat padding, I believe, so you can get away with it, but when this is for a major label, I should probably talk about. I had to think about that, and there's only one track on my forthcoming EP, which this is a part of, that I've said I'm not cutting it down because it's like 5.5 minutes, and they were like, "Oh, that's fine, but it probably won't get playlisted. It probably won't get radio time." And it's like, oh, so but it's the start reality you've got to sort of approach when you're a producer at some point. You've got to deal with the person going, "You can't do that," which is just as important as making a track, because putting it out is
you want to get it out to as much. It's a labor of love, and it whether you're on a label or not, it costs the artist always. So you do want to make sure that your baby gets out to as many different platforms as possible. So like I said, I don't necessarily think about it when I'm actually making the track in the situation where I'm like, oh my god, I've made a 6-minute track. But when it comes to actually like, okay, I've got to actually try and get this out and appease the certain people that I'm working with, then it becomes like, okay, kind of got to think about it, which it's great because I've got a nice team behind me personally, but I know it can be stressful for a lot of people, and it's something that is sort of really worthwhile noting, because I remember like maybe 10 years ago someone said that to me, I was like, nah, it doesn't matter, but kind of does, especially if you're starting to like session for people too, and working with other artists, you kind of got to really think about, oh yeah, X, Y, and Z, so you just get a bit techer. How much are you being made aware of like things like TikTok?
Quite frequently. So with TikTok, I mean, I used to do a lot on TikTok and I sort of stopped doing it just because I stopped enjoying it.
Yeah.
It can be a cool platform, but for me, I find it being one of them platforms where you don't necessarily need to use, you can do your own thing, but you do get told a lot, especially from the back end of things, where it's like, okay, let's get this sound up on TikTok. So it's like this, for example, let's put the sound up. Let's see how many people use it, and then we can use this to ship to playlisting. We can choose it, editorial playlisting.
Right, so
we can use it for radio as well. And then on top of that, it's like brand partnerships as well. So when it comes down to putting a track out, so let's say when this gets into cycle, which is when a track comes out, it'll be like, oh, you've got like a 8 to 4 week period prior to releasing. Let's try and hit as many things as we possibly can. It's like, all right, let's reach this influencer. Let's maybe reach, it might sound daft, like an airline, because the airline might go like, oh, might put it on like the TikTok, and then the TikTok sound gets used 400,000 times. That's a metric you can then use to leverage on major labels, radio, and then like when you're booking agents, like, we want this fee for some people. That's a major thing. So that can happen. I'm looking to say I'm quite free with a lot of my things. Like I say, I've got quite a nice team around me, and everyone's pretty chill, but it's still something that you have to talk about, and it's terrifying because I'm like, I don't want to make music, but it's something that I think a lot of people, especially once you start maybe working with more quote-unquote bigger brands, you do have to sort of face it. It's like, this is weird.
Yeah.
So
because it's kind of entering into the publishing world, which we spoke about briefly.
Yeah,
like,
publishing world's a complete different ballgame. I mean, I'm not doing too much publishing stuff right now, but I do get a lot of messages about it and just talking in regards to like, oh, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to get in the studio with this person? Do you want to do this for this brand and that brand? And then you have to talk. And it's a whole whirlpool. But luckily for this is just me hungover making tracks. So it's
as
all right.
It should be, as the Lord intended.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah, I was going to ask you a little bit because obviously, so you put your team together as well. Has that been something that happened fairly fast, or is it something that you took time on?
No, it took a while actually. So I've got a manager and agent. I'm with United Talent, and I'm with a man called Scott, who's Scream's manager too, independent. And what it was really was I was on, I was on a small booking agent. He's like a lovely lad called Ola. And then I went to Printworks with Scott because I was chatting to Scream quite a lot because Scream was like, oh, do you want us to come down? And I was like, yeah, I want to watch dubstep. And I didn't really think much of it. It was like, for me, it was just going to be a piss up and listen to dubstep. And I went in and there's a lad on crutches and he was like crippled in the corner, bless him. And then he was like, oh, you're Adam, aren't you? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'm this guy. I was like, yeah, Sal, mate. And then my manager's like, oh, get to fuck, this guy's a vulture. He's my agent now. And it kind of started really naturally, and everything was sort of like, everything has been for me super natural. It was just me going to places, chatting to people, and not really forcing anything. And I do think when you force a lot of things, it does get a bit like, whereas mine sort of been natural. I mean, Scott, what it was I was in a publishing deal with Juno and was going to put a few records out. That never fell through. And I went to Scott. I was like, listen, Ola, Scream, he's playing my tracks out. Could you maybe like send some out to some people because I'm a bit stuck right now because this has gone Pete Tong, basically, this deal. Not anything bad, it was just taking 2 hours, I was getting bored. It was just one of them. Yeah. Really mutual. I still like Juno quite a lot. I've got a good relationship with them. Just a preface. No, but they actually have been really sound. And what it was I just messaged Scott on the women. He was like, yeah, I'll send it out. And then from that, we started chatting, building relationships. Every single time I was in London, he's like, do you want to go for a beer? Let's have a chat. When I was doing like studio work down there. And then on the back of that, like I say, he was like, do you want to come down to Printworks? We'll get you like backstage. And I was like, yeah, man. And it was all super natural. And the team was luckily all subscribed to me. I wasn't trying to get onto them. And that's something which I do encourage, being like super like, don't just get with people because you think they're going to do good for you. Do get with people like who are actually good for you. So like, I went to everyone. I do get a bit of tough love from them both, which is the best thing to do. They're like, that's shit. That's great. Don't like let people bullshit you. Like, if something's shit, it should be told you it's shit, because if it goes out, it's like, and there's plenty of things that I think we've all seen from like big brands and whatnot. Like, why's that gone out? That's weird. I'm not a big brand or anything, but it's important. And these guys really instill that in me. But also on the back of it, they actually care about, I kind of hate to say it, I'm a brand, I'm a business. I was an artist, you're a business. And they really care about the idea of me being like, put into the right lineups, working with the right people, putting the right sort of music out. And this last year, it's been quite quiet, but it's been like them sitting me down and be like, right, if you want to do this, we need to look at this, maybe chat to this person, maybe. And it's been really, really nice. And now I'm at a point where I think I'm quite happy with like what to do, and it's going to start rolling out in the next year, which is amazing. But like I say, it's a lot of like labour of love, like you say, a lot of hard work, and a lot of people saying, don't do that, do this, but advising you, like, not because they want money out of you, because that's never been the goal for any of us. It does happen because it's a business, but they've been like, no. If you want to do this, we have to do it properly. And that's been the best thing. So my advice would be, if you are going to start working with managements, labels, agents, work with the right people. I've got a good team, I like to think, massively, and they help me loads. And like I say, when I'm sending them stuff like this, they'll either tell, no, it's not right if you want to do this, or yes. And luckily, I've signed off on all the EP, and that's on a major. So
amazing.
Yeah. So fingers crossed, it comes out in the next few months, and I'm not stressed anymore.
Hey, sick. Of this track, I feel there's something that we missed on this.
Potentially, I've tried to like skim it because there's quite a lot going on in terms of just like mixing and process. But if anyone's got anything they want to like pick the brains out, please feel free.
Well, we're going to open it out to the floor to questions shortly. FX, that's what I want to talk about.
Effects. To be honest, I don't actually.
Do you have go-to ones?
Not really.
Okay.
Like I might do a few things like with operator. Like I don't know what this is. I might make a few things, but for the most part, again, sample based with the stuff that I want to make because it just sounds nicer. Mm-hmm. This is a white noise with a bit of echo on it.
Lovely.
But like for the most part, it is just samples from like sound clashes, which is probably super common at this point because everyone's sampling from sound clashes.
Everyone loves a laser.
Absolutely. But that's really it for me. Like I say, it's all just sample based in that regard. The other thing that's a bit weird is probably this vinyl noise, which is in a sampler and doing a bit of a.
I like that. It's like a sort of roasting fire, but in an AI holodeck.
Yeah, and I wish I could tell you why I did it. I generally don't know. I just like, yeah, that sounds cool.
It's nice though, because you've got that headroom, and I think that's another thing. You know, when you've actually made space for these transients and these other elements to be in there, I think that makes big tunes. When there's just some little element that may not jump out right at the front, but it sets it apart because it's in a sort of, you're creating a virtual space, a virtual sound.
Yeah, defo. I mean, like, I think when it comes to sort of like the ambience of a track, I do just sort of want it just to be sort of a noise floor because it's like when you watch a film, there's nothing that's ever quote unquote silent, even though it might be. There's always a bit of like room noise.
I don't know, Long Legs was a bit much.
I've not watched it yet.
Silence was oppressive.
But I think for a lot of it, it's just sort of filling out that sort of, and it's perceivable. It's not sort of, like, well, what's that? You kind of like, something's there, but you can't necessarily hear it. It's sort of just there.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's literally the icing on the cake. I think it's the little sprinkle of magic.
Yeah, I mean, like you can overdo it. Like I remember the first rendition I sent out of this track, which has been played out quite a lot now, which I'm surprised at. There's like a lot of vinyl noise. I was like, I should have turned that down a bit, but I'm like, it's like a vinyl rip. No one's gonna rip it off. And if they do, I'm like, bollocks, you've got too much vinyl noise on it. But like for the most part, it's just one of them where it's sort of out of habit, maybe from like old production days. But I've always had like vinyl noise, or I've got like a folder of like
a folder of vinyl noise, a folder of roasting fires.
Well, analog noise, yeah, it's just sample magic. It's a splice part, but it's just
lovely.
I was putting them under your track.
That's not what it sounds like going downstairs.
Yeah, so then they are like nice, hard. And I always find them if you don't have them sort of things in your track, the track will just sound empty. But if you are going for that via like minimal tech, that's fine. I'm not.
Yeah, I tend to. Do you record much Foley, like using your phone and stuff? Because I record a lot of like ambient spaces if I'm next to the ocean or somebody arguing or an Uber driver who's going off on one.
I did used to, and I actually did recently. There's a big like football ultra firm. And I was just out the window, just like recording them. I've tried to use it in a track, but I don't know what they're saying, so I'm a bit like, is it racist? I'm not going to put it in just in case it is.
Let's find out.
It's in a different language. It's like, it's probably best to leave that out. Yeah. It sounds good. Probably not the best to use though.
Reverse it.
Yeah.
Some of the words.
I just don't know what it says. I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to leave it. But no, I used to be big on it. But what I do is I've got a Euro rack set up. And not in this track, but what I would do is like just sort of spend hours patching it, but getting like the sounds that you probably don't want. So like all the sort of shitty like sort of clicks and pops. I find that brilliant to like layer on drums. And when you do that, it adds like sort of the uniqueness to a track. And that's where you sort of get like a individual sound. This one is just sort of me wanting to make deep house, but then not making deep house. So that's what that turned into. But I do find like, Foleys, like just obscure sounds is what adds to like your sort of repertoire as a producer.
Yeah, amazing. We have time to open it out to some questions on the floor if you are still up for that.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, I'm
do we have the Jeremy Kyle Brittany mic? Yeah, we got them. Yeah, we got the mics. Please raise your hand if you have a question for Lovely Ghoulish. We have one over here. Jeremy Kyle mic over there, please. Thank you.
When it comes to like, obviously when you get the foundation for the track, you know, like your basic drums, your basic bass, your vocal, all that. When it comes to like ear candy and like background effects that make the track sound full, like where do you go for that type of sound? Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I always struggle with.
It really depends. So like if you're making like a speed garage track, like I say, you probably want to go for things that are like, you know, in your sound clashes, your dub echoes, your dub sirens, all that stuff. But I do find like if you want to be a bit more unique, you can just generate it super easy. It's like it's so easy in Ableton to like get an operator, which is like the FM synth in Ableton, automate all the parameters and just like you click random once you put it into a group, and like resample all that, and then like put like loads of echoes on it, and just like you know, you can sort of hear naturally where something should be. And that's where I think a lot of ear candy would come from. And I do that myself. Like, say, this track's a bit different because I want it to be sort of sample-based and it's the idea of it. But when approaching, like, ear candy and stuff, it is literally just a case of, like, you know, if you've got a 4-bar loop, at the end of that 4-bar loop, just before it recycles, you want, like, a little like that. Just put it in there. And that, to me, is, like, what it is. But I think the best thing to do is make it unique. And the best thing to do is, like, Ableton's randomize, which I can pull up here. If you... make like a group, and then if you like basically like just Command G, and then this part here, your macro, just map every single macro to something. I don't know. Let's over example like that, and then once that's done, just click random loads. Whilst that's playing, resample it, which is like if you click Command T, and then go to here, resample it, and whilst that's playing, just keep on clicking random. It'll keep going. And that way you'll have like a massive, massive folder of like little weird sound, and you can use that for ear candy, and that's something that I do quite a lot.
It's a really good way of using days where like you've approached making music, as we've talked about before, like you go into your studio like, today I'm going to write the hit, here we go. Yep. And then of course you don't, because psychologically you've completely stuffed it. But it's good to use that time and be like, okay, I'm not going to write the hit tonight, but things like this where you're actually like starting to add to your arsenal of like things that you can use is a really amazing use of time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like if I go to my instrument rack, for example, you can just see like I've just made so much stuff like there. And that's just me either making presets or just fanning around with things. But I do find I struggle with it, like, you know, work full time myself. When I finish a day's work, I don't want to sit in front of Ableton sometimes. But the best thing to do sometimes is just sit in front of Ableton and do nothing, but make stuff like that. And that's where you'll have like a massive, massive like sample base. Like I've got all the stuff that I've made here, which is just loads of stuff that I've just fanned around or found or recorded, and that helps with like ear candy. So that's how I'd go about that.
Nice. Any more questions from the floor? Got one right at the back there.
What would you say, or who was your biggest influence when it came to learning Ableton and everything, like all the in-depth, proper nerdy techie stuff inside it?
There's a plethora of people. I think for me it was sort of the music I was listening to at the time, which was like really heavy, like dubstep, tear out and stuff, and that's super, super like techie to make. I was watching like Virtual Riot is phenomenal for anything Ableton related. Seamless R, who was like FL Studio at the time, but you can sort of carry things over. And then just sort of watching loads of artist speaks, like loads of the old dubstep heads that I was watching. Cohen Sound used to have a Patreon that I used to like rinse. And you just learn so much from the people, because a lot of things at the time that they say is probably like quite common, like, oh, you think about it yourself, but then when they put it into practice, I've never thought of it like that. And that's what helps me massively. So, and I still watch a lot of tutorials. I'm never going to like shy away from that. Like I say, sometimes you can't be arsed making music as much as you love it. You're like, I don't know what to do. So you go and sit and watch a tutorial, and they might just say one thing, and that one thing will spark like a whole track or a whole EP. So, yeah, I think for the nerdy sound of Ableton, it probably was Virtual Riot and Cohen Sound and Noisier too. They were like the big ones getting my head around it. But I don't use ARF anymore. It's just sort of in the back burner because it is very like, you know, oh my God, it's going to blow my head off music. Whereas stuff that I do now is, it's sort of blow your head off music, but it's not got a massive respace. That's like clipping. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions? A double drop.
Apologies, I don't mean to pick your brain, but
That's what we're here for, mate.
yeah. So obviously when I'm DJing on the CDJs and I try to load my own tune onto them, I see the waveforms are not like peaking as much as like some professionally like mix and master tunes. I'm basically asking you like, how do I get my tunes like as loud as them? Obviously, I know it's not like loud as in decibels. I mean like perceived loudness.
Yeah.
How do I get them like pumping?
Yeah, so how that works is pretty much how I've talked about here, where it's like, so you see all these groups with things like K-clip, saturator. There's not a soft clip on there, but usually I would soft clip it. So what it is like, imagine every single point of your production, you like sort of control the volume, so it's not going crazy, and it's every single moment is controlled. So when you get to that final point of making it loud, I'm going to be honest, my master is literally Ozone's like fucking limiter getting smashed, and a Pro L getting turned up. But once I turn them off, the mix still sounds the same. It's just quieter. So it really depends on your mix. Everyone's like, your master is important. The master is important, I do agree. But if you're doing stuff for the club, make it a quick edit, whatever. I do think like your mix down is where it's all at, and that is just balancing everything out. And mine's all really simple. So I always think about like, how am I going to like, make a sandwich, for example. You're not going to use like wet bread to put a bacon butty on, do you know what I mean? You've got to use like firm toast. So, and if your kick's shite, right, your bacon's going through the fucking toast. So that's how you've got to think about your mix down. You've got to have that base level of like sort of quality, build it up, control it. Then when it comes to that final bit, when you that's what smash the limiter and stuff like that, it's going to hold up to other club tracks. And to be honest, most like major artists I know do that, unless like they're going on an EP or on a major. You are going to get maybe like a professional master. But most people, from what I know, do their own mixing in the club scene. There's more like UK garage scene and stuff like that. And it is just literally sitting there, being bored shitless, going, fucking hell, that kick sounds shite, that drum sounds shite, and building up around that. But you sort of like, the simpler you make it, the easier it gets. And like I say, most of mine is just sample selection, designing like really good sounds, but all my sounds and basses are super simple. Like I say, this one here is just saw waves, a sine wave, a bit of a triangle on it, and then one pitched up. Super simple. Balancing it out, and then once you've got like that sound, do like all the sort of compression, and then smash it on a limiter.
Do you test any of your mixes on really bad speakers?
Yes, I test everything on my phone. I've got the new iPhone, so it's a bit better than the old one.
Cute wallpaper, a little bit.
Thanks, Mrs. But like that's a really good way to test it, because sometimes if it's harsh on here, it's not too much of a problem, but if it's really harsh, it's bad. Then I test my car. I
was going to say the car is the most brutal place to test any sort of mix.
I've got that, and then at my flat, I've got like a sound bar, and it's like a really exaggerated sub bass. But if it sounds good on it, it sounds really wicked. And like, I thought, if it sounds on there, and then I've also got like my DJ setup, which has got a pair of E5s Aries, which are alright speakers, but not as good as what I'm using in the studio. So I would just tend to test everything out on that. But like I say, the visual, I'm going to try and pull it up, and I might break this.
Because it's really important. I mean, I've been in like massive studios with every possible speaker known to man. The whole room was worth more than I'll ever see in my life, I'll ever earn. But at the end of the day, this producer who's produced like massive things, we came in the morning and he was testing it on like the most busted up old like Dell laptop. It was on its last. You could hear it going like that, trying to like load the sample or load the track.
So like this is like a big side time, but I've got a day job where I make music for gambling games, and I actually it's a massive tangent.
I was hoping you'd tell everyone that.
Right. The reason it comes to handy because when I actually have to test the music for that, I have to test it on mobile and I have to test it on speakers, because no one's gambling on a fucking studio setup.
Funnily enough, they're not gambling.
Right. So what it's all the studio gambler. Anyway.
We better book out Metropolis and play the game.
Right, so anyway, what it taught me is that I've got this laptop that's an absolute like bag of shite, and when I sit and make these like sort of tracks, whatever genre they are, I've got to test it on the laptop speaker, because if I don't, I know it's going to sound like it can sound amazing on my speakers, but if like the mid range is a bit harsh, and that's a really good way to test everything. But this is what I just pulled up. I didn't realize I could do it on here without breaking the recording software, but it's not. So this is mini meters at the top. You can see that black bar there. And what that's going to do, that's going to be a visual representation of everything, but it's going to look like your record box, which is probably what it's looking like on a CDJ. And it looks like this. So you can tell, like, when I'm loading that onto a CDJ, it's going to look like sorted. I know it sounds a dead stupid thing. It's like, size doesn't matter. Trust me, in record box it does. And like when I was talking about the bass before, like the old, like the sort of nerdy DC stuff, this is how I visualized it. So I'll try and break it a little bit on it. Just do that for long, man. Right, so we've got this here. And what would happen is if I didn't have the low pass on, I'm hoping it does it. Let's turn the sub off. You'll be able to see that it.
Wow.
I don't know if it's going to do it on there because I might have done it. But there's like, you can see like sort of the inconsistencies of the waveform. It's a bit more positive. And when it was, I'm not normally like a stickler on it, but that is a huge thing. And that's, again, when it comes to like mixing down and stuff like that, I will consider things visual. So when it comes to record box and stuff like that, it doesn't usually matter, but it does sort of show that you've got a good mix down if everything's sort of looking kind of like a sausage, but sounds all right.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a tangent, but yeah.
No, amazing. I would just like to ask one final question before we go back to listening to some more tracks. So if you've submitted some tracks and you haven't heard them yet, we have another hour after this to listen to your masterpieces. But before that, I would like to ask, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but what would be your advice to producers who maybe are looking for, how do you keep yourself motivated?
I don't really.
I don't.
I'm going to be honest. Like, no, so like, but something that I've realised is that it's okay to not make music.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've got a full-time job making music, which is important to my creative process. And then making ghoulish stuff sometimes, I just don't. Like for the past month, I've been in the middle of like moving out, working on like a record, doing my full-time job and just being ill and doing gigs. I'm like, fucking, I can't make music right now. And then I feel guilty the week where I'm not making music, but it actually comes in benefit. Like yesterday, I sat down and made a whole track. I was like, this is a bang. It's one of the best tracks I made.
Because you had time off.
I had time off. And I think that is such an important thing because people like, I've met loads of people like when I've been gigging and stuff and they're like, yeah, I make about 400 tracks a week. I'm like, what are you talking about?
398 of them are doggers.
And I'm just like, mate, what do you mean you make 400 tracks a week? And he's like,
What?
He's like, yeah, I make 400. I'm like, all right.
They're all 10 seconds long.
No, so I bet, we're not getting to. But I bet some people who can like literally shit out tracks. But then like you look at the sort of quality of the tracks some people have made, and I've been in this situation where I've shit out about 40 tracks in a week. These are shit. These are rubbish. And I think the best thing about making music is realising that not every single track you're going to make is good. That's absolutely fine. Like if I went through like my project files right now, like Jesus, like half of these are absolute dog water. And you've got to realise that. I think it's like a humbling realisation that every single track you're going to make is not going to be amazing. It's not going to be a hit. But what it might provide is a skeleton for a track that could be that. And that's what I do. So like a lot of things I do is like I would go back on myself and I might build off another track. Yeah. And that's a really good way to keep myself motivated. Or I'm like looking to have like a doorless setup and I would just sit and noodle on that for a while. But I'll be honest, not much recently because I've been like fortunate to gig a lot.
No, it's important.
But you get to that point where you're gigging so much, you're working, you've got to do all this. You can't make music, so you've got to have that break for yourself and draw a line. And when I spoke to a lot of really, really big touring artists, it's like a full-time job. They're like, yeah, we've not made a track for like 4 or 5 months. I'm like, what? That's insane to me. But I'm like, I've not made a track for a month. Like, that's nothing, mate. Just wait till you get to the big boy leagues. Yeah. So that's it, really. I think keeping motivated is knowing that you don't have to make music all the time. There's no actual... it sounds really horrible, but no one cares if you do or don't make music. And that's a crazy realisation to have.
My neighbours do.
Yeah. I have a noise complaint in my flat. But I do think, like, especially myself, I hold myself to such a high expectation that I think people are going to care when no one cares. But that's sort of the beauty of it. No one cares, so you can just sort of sit, make something. If it's shit, no one cares. But if it makes something amazing, no one cares. But you put it out, it's like, that's really good. But that sort of stress is, it's what everyone has as a creative.
Don't be your own worst enemy, basically.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for the pearls of wisdom, and thank you for an amazing talk and a look under the hood of your incredible process. It's very generous. Please give a hand to Ghoulish. Also, if you have enjoyed this and you are new here, please feel welcome. We are usually here either the last Wednesday or Thursday of each month. We have more this year than usual. Normally we have 4 a year. I think we have extended in Manchester to more. So more of this, more fun and frolics with more artists. But most importantly, this evening, as I mentioned, if you have not already submitted your track or had a listen to it on the Soup system, please do. We have another hour. And feel free to hang out, chat to people. I know it's daunting. Most people in here, we're used to just being in front of a computer and going through different snares and claps, right? But do feel free to like chat to people. Don't be shy. If you're like, this is my tune, it's sick, like whatever. But yeah, as we say, we would really love to make sure that there's a communal vibe and that everyone feels comfortable. Everyone's like, we're all mad people doing this, right, together. So let's be mad. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's submitted their tracks so far. And I'm looking forward to hearing some more because there have been some bangers tonight. But once again, thank you very much. Blessings. And we'll see you at the next one, yeah? Yeah. Bless up. Where's the DJ at? Should I just play this?